Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user FarSafety9543. Would I be the a-hole if I divorced my husband just for asking to be polyamorous? This is really upsetting to me on all accounts and I'm getting mixed opinions from the few real-life people I've talked to about it, so I could use the advice of total strangers. I, 26 female, and my husband, 27 male, have been married for just over a year and together for 4. We spent a long time before getting married talking about what we wanted out of being married, so I thought we were on the same page about all the important things. I do love him very much. He is sweet, helpful, and generally my dream partner, until last week. Out of the blue, he sat down one night and said he wanted to talk about something. I thought it was just something minor he was frustrated about, or a bad day at work or something. Instead, he talked about how he found out that his best friend and his wife are polyamorous. He and his friend have been talking about it more and he thinks he might like to try it and wondered what I thought. I felt instantly sick to my stomach. We've always had a great sex life and he's never given me any reason to think he was interested in anyone else. I told him that I'm not interested in being in a polyamorous relationship. I want to be monogamous with him for the rest of my life. If it had stopped there, I don't think it would have gotten so bad. But then he asked if I would read about it and then decide. I said no, I already know how I feel about it. He asked if I would at least think about it, and for some reason, that just did something to me. Like instant revulsion, kind of upset. I got up and told him that I was too upset to keep talking and that I needed some space, so I would sleep in the guest room that night and we could talk later. Ever since that night, I've had the biggest ick anytime I see him. He keeps trying to backtrack, but I know he meant what he said about wanting to be polyamorous. It's not so much that he brought it up, it's the 2 other asks after I already said I would never be comfortable with it. It's like that didn't matter to him. He thought he could convince me, and it makes me feel awful. What else is he willing to pressure me about if I say no? And if he already wants to sleep with someone else, how can I ever trust him not to do it behind my back? I'm still sleeping in the guest room and I'm thinking of just asking for a divorce now, when it would be simpler to divide everything and go our separate ways instead of waiting until years down the line when I get my heart broken. He could go do whatever he wants and I could find someone who just wants a good solid monogamous relationship with me. The idea is killing me, but I feel like it's going to hurt now no matter what I do. While I do still love him, I don't think I can ever unhear and unsee my husband asking me for an open relationship, and the idea of him touching me makes me feel ill. He's upset and frustrated that I'm punishing him for asking a question, but I honestly don't know what he expected to happen. There is a part of me that thinks maybe divorcing him is being overdramatic, but also the ick is so strong that I don't have much hope of getting back to where we were. Am I the a-hole? No, OP, you're not overreacting. I would think that's the right call to make. I mean, you don't want it. He definitely wants it. He didn't just bring it up as a question. He pushed you twice to see if you'd reconsider it. That's definitely boundary testing. OP, in my opinion, this is a deal breaker. Like you said, you went into this relationship and you wanted a monogamous relationship with him. That was it. He doesn't want that, so, well, that's it then. And as you say, I mean, if you stay in the relationship with him and you try to work on it, what's gonna happen the next time he feels this itch that he's polyamorous? He's just gonna go out and do it without talking to you about it. So yeah, OP, in my opinion, no, I don't think you're the a-hole for considering divorce after what your husband pulled. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Dead Bee Walking says, not the a-hole. I don't think it's overdramatic to get out of a contract you signed with another person when they are trying to change the terms a year into it. Blood Money Morality says, not the a-hole. Polyamory is other relationships, not just open sex, and men oftentimes overestimate their value and ability to get other partners. They also tend to already have someone in mind when asking. Matt Volume says, not the a-hole. I can imagine how painful my wife asking to sleep with other people would be. The "it's just a question" thing is ridiculous too. There are countless of questions that just speaking into the world shows the kind of person you are. The fact that it would come up now, out of nowhere too? I don't know what you're going to do, but I hope you're alright. Chopped Liver 65 says, never sacrifice your core principles for anyone else. Truthfully, I have no knowledge of polyamory except to recognize that it seems trendy now. If your husband can be swayed by a friend's stories to the point of trying repeatedly to persuade you to abandon what you believe were shared values, you may no longer be compatible. If you no longer trust him, you would not be the a-hole to divorce. Exploring counsel might make you more comfortable about your decision. And Fancy Requirement 536 says, not the a-hole. You're punishing him for nagging you about it and not taking no for an answer. It's sad that he's gotten bored with monogamy so quickly. Didn't he understand the vows when you got married? Only you can decide if you want to try and stay with him. He thinks his friend's life is great, sex with the wife and sex with random women too. But wait till one of them gets jealous or an STD. Life will get complicated for his buddy if they have kids and the wife wants a committed parent. Opie's edit. Gosh, this got a lot of replies. I'm reading through them as best I can. I'm going to take the advice to get an STI test and my gyno is going to work me in today for that. I don't think he would physically cheat, but better safe than sorry. I do think there is probably someone he's interested in, possibly his best friend's wife or maybe even his friend. He's never expressed being bisexual, but that doesn't mean he isn't. I don't know them very well, so I can't speculate on their role in all of this. I'm going to be charitable and assume there are no machinations from their end and he just picked this up from his friend and ran with it. I want to be clear that I am not ignoring him. We can talk about whatever else is going on, but I'm not ready to continue this conversation with him and he knows that. I want to be calm for that, and his behavior is not really conducive to a sense of calm right now. Every time he brings it up makes me a little more disgusted with him, but he seems intent on digging this hole instead of letting things settle. That, and not taking the first no for an answer, is a bigger issue than the poly ask for me. I think I'm going to meet with a lawyer just to go over options. At this point, I don't have a lot of faith in counseling changing how I feel about him now, but I would be willing to try a few sessions to say we gave it a shot. I'll throw that out there tonight and see what he says. Edit 2. He doesn't think counseling is necessary. He just wants to go back to the way things were before bringing it up. I've told him that's not an option. You can't unbreak a bone, it has to heal instead. I asked him if he had someone in mind and he said no. But he's not a very good liar and I don't really believe him. He says it was just an idea and there's no one and nothing has happened. But he also doesn't want to show me the messages between him and his friend so I can understand the content of the conversation they had. I will respect his choice, but it's enough to convince me that there's something he's hiding even if it's not an affair in progress, and that's a problem. I've got an appointment with a lawyer in a few days. I'm going to wait until after that to make a decision, and I'm going to take a short trip alone to see my grandparents this weekend to get some fresh air and perspective. I'll try to update next week after all the results come back and I've had a chance to look at all the facts with a professional. Thank you for your kind support and advice. Well, the community agrees that OP is not the a-hole for considering divorce, and well, she's got an appointment. So now let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. A lot of people wanted an update and I've made some difficult decisions. I took advice from the thread and got an STI panel done. Fortunately, it came back clear. I suggested counseling, but my husband doesn't think it's necessary. I doubt it will change my feelings, so I'm not going to push for it. He is being overly protective of his phone after I asked to see a message conversation between him and his poly friend to understand the context of the situation. I would not violate his privacy, but there clearly is something he doesn't want me to see, and that's enough. It doesn't matter to me anymore whether there is something already in progress or just a desire for there to be. The shadiness of his behavior tells me what I need to know. I've been tempted to contact his friends directly to get their take, But in the event there is infidelity happen, I would rather not burden myself with the details, to be honest. I had a heart-to-heart with my grandparents this weekend and spoke with a lawyer yesterday. As of right now, I'm planning to move forward with a divorce. With no kids and no joint property or debt, since we were waiting on buying a house till I'm finished with residency, it should be easy to split the financials. The lease on our apartment is up in a couple of months anyway, so I plan to move out after breaking the news and just pay my portion of the rent on the current place until its renewal time. I'm heartbroken, but I'm convinced that this is the best move. I don't trust him anymore. I'm repulsed by his behavior since the ask, and I think it's best to cut our losses before digging the hole deeper. If he was willing to be transparent and do something to work on reestablishing trust, it would be different. But that's not the case, and I don't want to put in effort that he's not interested in putting in. I will be fine with time. So yeah, not a happy ending, but I think it's in my best overall interest, and if he's not happy with monogamy a year into marriage, his best interest as well. Hopefully, we can part ways quietly and without a lot of fuzz. Well, P, I guess it is kind of a sad update, but it was sad the moment you realized that your husband didn't just want to be with you for the rest of his life, and that's not what you wanted. And even though it's painful right now, as you say, you will be fine with time. So here's wishing you the best, OP. Take care and thanks for sharing. And now let's move on to the next post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole, and it's by user FamilyJewelsTA. Am I the a-hole for not sharing my aunt's jewelry with my cousin's kids? My 30s female aunt, 60s female, recently died less than a year after being diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. She never married, never had kids, and I'm one of 6 nieces and nephews. Both my sister and female cousin, Nadia, are married with kids. My male cousin, Casey, 40 male, is married with 2 daughters, and neither of my younger brothers is married. They are largely irrelevant to this story. I'm single and I have no intention of having kids of my own. Background: my aunt was a doctor and went into palliative care when she was diagnosed. She wanted to enjoy the time she had left, mostly with travel. I was close to graduating from surgery residency when she was diagnosed. She asked if I would be willing to be her private physician after graduation, accompanying her on travels, prescribing her pain meds, etc. She paid me a little bit more than I had been making as a resident, paid for my travel, first business class flights, nice hotels, etc., contributed toward my student loans, and put me on the deed to her house. I moved in with her. I also moonlighted and did locums when we weren't traveling, and after, she got too sick to travel so I could keep up my surgery skills. Long story shorter, even with the time I wasn't making a full surgeon's salary, I still benefited financially from the agreement. My aunt had been a doctor in the foreign service and had accumulated a lot of stuff: Middle Eastern carpets, furniture, silk and cashmere scarves, art, jewelry, etc. in her career. Everything was open to all her nieces and nephews to split as we see fit, except the jewelry, which was left specifically to her nieces. There was surprisingly little drama splitting any of it. We even had everything appraised, so we were all in agreement on the value of what we were getting. My sister Nadia and I all have different enough tastes in jewelry that we easily agreed on how to split the nice stuff, and most of the costume jewelry was set aside for my niece and Nadia's daughters for when they're a little older. They're both under 4. Here's where Casey comes in. He said that his daughters deserve to have some of my aunt's jewelry as well. My sister and Nadia said they're okay with splitting the costume jewelry to include his daughters, but he said that they deserve some of the nice stuff as well. My niece will probably get my sister's jewels someday, and possibly mine, and Nadia's daughter will possibly inherit what Nadia got. So Casey says it's not fair that my niece and Nadia's daughters will get more than his daughter. Casey also says since I got the house, the furniture in the house that no one else wanted, got to travel with my aunt, and she paid off a large portion of my student loans, that I should share the wealth. My siblings are staying out of it, and Nadia says it's ultimately my choice, but that what Casey says isn't wrong. Am I the a-hole for holding to my aunt's will? Is this a hill worth dying on? I have a great relationship with my cousins and siblings and don't want this to sour that. Of course you're not the a-hole, OP. Your aunt made her wishes very clear. She left the jewelry to the nieces and that's what was handed out. And also all that spiel that you should share the wealth, well, you were the one that was taking care of your aunt. And not just out of love, you were hired to do so. So you could also just as well demand that he shares his paycheck with you. My point is, OP, you're not the a-hole. Casey doesn't have a leg to stand on. You're just respecting your aunt's wishes. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Silly Femboy says, not the a-hole. Your aunt specifically left it to you. She clearly cares about it, and it wouldn't be right to disrespect her wishes. I'd hold on to the jewelry. And OP responds, my aunt was really interested in the role jewelry played in women's inheritance and financial security in various cultures, which is why I think she specifically left jewelry to just the nieces and not to all 6 of us. But I know the last thing she wanted was for us to argue about inheritance. When my great-grandfather, her grandfather died, her cousin contested parts of the will and it caused a lot of drama. My dad still hasn't spoken to that cousin, and it's been more than 30 years. Teeny Sod says, not the a-hole, and I'm sorry for your loss. You must have become quite close to your aunt during the time you cared for her. I think your cousin needs to appreciate that you sacrificed a lot to provide care for your aunt, and that time out may have held back career progression, although you were wise to keep in date to be able to maintain where you were before you gave up full-time work. Whatever your aunt's will said, your property is yours now to dispose of as you wish. So as you say you have a good relationship with your cousin, it might be nice to consider sharing items that you are not really using or have no real attachment to, or selling them and sharing the proceeds. You are under absolutely no obligation to do any of that though, and as your loss was quite shocking and recent, don't make any big decisions and ask your siblings for support. And OP responds, thank you for that. My aunt was awesome and I really miss her. She wasn't physically present when I was growing up because of her foreign service career, but she was there every Christmas and sent us postcards from everywhere she went. I looked up to her for as long as I can remember, and she's why I became a doctor. Getting to spend those last months with her and getting to see the favorite places where she lived and visited was a blessing, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I think taking some time to sit on decisions is the way to go. It's jewelry. It's not like it's going to go bad. And his daughters are 2 and 5. So it's not like there's a wedding coming up imminently that they need jewelry for or anything. And that person 694 says, not the a-hole. The aunt stated what she wanted done in her will, which you're following. You rearranged your life to care for her. Your cousin is the a-hole here. Community agrees OP is not the a-hole, it was the aunt's will. So now let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. So, the update. The 6 of us got together over the holiday. I was able to disburse the last of the proceeds from selling the art, rugs, antiques, etc. that none of us wanted. That ended up being a few $1,000s each. Not life-changing money for any of us, but nice to have. I will probably use it to go on a solo trip in my aunt's honor, once I accrue enough vacation now that I'm working full-time again. I had decided based on your comments that I would offer any of my nieces, existing and future, if my brothers end up having kids, that they could shop from my inherited jewelry for their weddings. Before I could even present that solution, Casey was super apologetic about the way he had acted. He was feeling guilty that he hadn't been able to spend more time with our aunt before she died. He has small kids at home, work obligations, etc., and he was jealous that I had had more flexibility to travel with her for those months, and that made him lash out. Turns out, his wife had essentially read him the riot act when he had complained to her that their daughters weren't included, reminded him that their daughters have her whole side of the family, reminded him that jewelry is traditionally passed down female lines, the whole bit. He was quite embarrassed by how childish he had acted, but I did present that solution, and both Nadia and my sister thought it was such a good idea that they said the same. when the next generation of girls gets married, they can choose from their inheritances too. So, all is well. Thank you all for your support and kind words. I am not going to go no contact with any of my siblings or cousins. I still miss my aunt. Work is not terribly exciting, but it's a paycheck and it's nice to see that my surgical skills didn't slip irreparably. Well, Pete, you didn't have to have a tough conversation with your cousin because, well, his wife did that for you. But out of all of this, you guys came up with a really nice solution for the future generation. So here's wishing you the best, OP. Thanks for sharing and take care. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.